Well, hello everyone. I'm Pastor Chris White, and I'm glad that you've joined us for these videos on Mental Health Month, which is the month of May. And I have a guest with me today who is a mental health nurse practitioner, Linda Onsgard. Linda, thank you for joining us today. And we've certainly been enriched by many of the conversations we had thus far. And I wanted to talk about, in this segment, post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, I first heard about this in relation to Vietnam veterans, and I'm just old enough that I actually have, friends whose parents were World War II and Korea veterans, and never ever heard them talk about PTSD. Is this something that is a more modern feature of the war experience, and does PTSD always have to be related to war to have it? What would you have to say about that?
Good questions. PTSD has been around for a very long time, and we just didn't have a name for it for a while.
Okay.
And in recent years, because of all the wars we've been involved in, there has been a lot more attention being paid to post-traumatic stress disorder. But it can happen in regard to a number of things. PTSD is actually trauma-induced. So definitely war can lead to it, but also things like disasters, fires, floods, hurricanes, mass shootings. It can also happen following some kind of accident that someone has.
Okay.
They can experience
Like a car accident, maybe?
a car accident, a swimming, boating accident. Yeah, any kind of an accident, really. Someone could experience PTSD. Also, we really need to acknowledge the role that severe abuse plays in PTSD. Many people suffering from that with the increase in sex trafficking that we are seeing. There is an awful lot of PTSD being experienced by those folks.
Okay. When we talk about somebody having post-traumatic stress disorder, what are some of the observable signs? Especially if we have a loved one that may be struggling with that, what would we see in their life that might indicate that?
Yeah, you would see, and if you are experiencing PTSD, you can relate to the fact that you would be experiencing some pretty severe anxiety. You would likely be having nightmares. The person would be having flashbacks of the trauma. They often exhibit heightened reactions. It's like they're just always on guard, eyes in the back of their head. Many times there's a lot of anger that the person is working through, and they can have anger outbursts. They can be very depressed as well, involving even leading to suicidal thinking. And they can have a lot of difficulty concentrating. We think about our veterans that come back from war, and suddenly they have to re-enter the family, and they have to concentrate on their family. They have to maybe concentrate on their children's homework, helping them with that. If they come back to a job, they have to concentrate on the job, and it's very difficult.
I used to watch a TV show, maybe some of you will remember this it was in the 1980s. It was called Miami Vice. And I remember that TV show because the two heroes in the television show, they would have these massive gunfights, and they would, shootouts almost every episode, and they would always end with them, back at the office as if nothing happened, like it's just another day of work. Yeah. And I know that's bizarre to even think that could actually happen in real life, but it does make me wonder, though, how is it though that some people seem to go through trauma a lot better than others, and what can we do? Okay, like we find ourselves in the trauma. What can we do to fare better, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, very good question. There are some things that do definitely affect how someone reacts to and heals from trauma. First of all, the trauma itself. There is trauma that's more severe than another. So the degree of severity of the trauma is going to have an impact on the amount of PTSD and how someone can heal through it. Also, the individual person's strengths prior to the trauma. If you were a really strong person with good ego strength and really good coping skills, then you're going to maybe have a little bit easier time.
Okay.
And the third thing is the recovery environment. If you've got supportive people around you, it's going to make all the difference in the world. If someone is there to understand what you've been through and to walk through it with you. I think about our Vietnam veterans who did not come back to a recovery environment that was good, sadly. And I think in recent years we've been trying to make that up to them. I don't know that we can ever make it up to them, but
Sure.
I think we've been trying to show that support so that they can even now experience some recovery.
Now, this may be an obvious question, but maybe not. Is it possible that somebody could have the symptoms of PTSD and not necessarily have themselves been directly exposed to a traumatic incident?
Yeah, there is something that's really kind of called secondary PTSD. If you're living with someone that is experiencing PTSD, you are definitely affected. Your daily life is likely stressful. You may be feeling like you're walking on eggshells. Relationships are affected when someone is experiencing PTSD. So again, I think about our veterans, and they come back home, and not only do they have to re-enter, but their family, their friends, their colleagues at work have to re-enter a relationship with them, and sometimes that's very difficult, and sometimes relationships are broken. There's often kind of a death of dreams if the person experiencing PTSD is just not able to come back into their life as they knew it before. It can result in a lot of loss.
Okay. What sort of treatments would you recommend for people that maybe find themselves in a traumatic stress disorder?
Yeah, there are treatments. There is definitely help. For PTSD, it's really critical to have support, and oftentimes that comes in the form of a group. Many of our veterans are involved in support groups with people who have been through similar experiences and can relate to one another and empathize with one another. Support animals have become huge for helping someone through a traumatic experience. There are some medications, not many, but in the class of antidepressants, particularly SSRIs as they are referred to, there are a couple of medications that can be helpful, and that's where you need to seek counseling with your healthcare professional to determine if that would be helpful to you. Also, there is a particular treatment called EMDR that I'd like to mention. It stands for Eye Movement Desensitization and Reprocessing. It's a very specific treatment that has been very helpful to many people. It can only be done with a very trained therapist who knows how to do EMDR. But if you are experiencing PTSD, it's something you might want to look into because it can be very helpful. In fact, for those especially coming back from war, but really even anybody experiencing severe PTSD, it has been recognized now by the American Psychiatric Association, the World Health Organization, and the Department of Defense as a very legitimate treatment for PTSD.
All right. Words of wisdom for somebody suffering or helping someone who's suffering from PTSD, Linda.
Yes, you're not alone. You're not going crazy. There is support out there. There is help for you. Please reach out. And if you are a loved one of someone, help them. Help them reach out. I would also have us reflect on a couple of scriptures. I think about the 23rd Psalm, "The Lord is my shepherd." And that whole psalm is so comforting for anytime we're going through a difficult experience. But also Psalm 27, I want to read just a verse from that that I think applies to PTSD. And that says, It's verse 5 of Psalm 27. For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his tabernacle and set me upon a rock. So that's what we can rely on with our God.
I think it's interesting that the Bible never tells us that we are going to be shielded from all trauma or days of trouble, so to speak, but the Lord will bring us through that time of trouble. I think of Jesus' words on the Sermon on the Mount, the Sermon on the Mount, where he talks about building your house on the rock or the sand. And in both cases, the winds blew, the rains fell, the storms came.
Yeah.
But the Lord preserved his own through that for those people that clung to the rocks. So
Absolutely.
wonderful thoughts. Thank you, Linda. And thank you today for joining us. And we hope that you'll watch some of our other videos on this very important topic of mental health. God bless you, and I hope you have a great day.